Attention podcast listeners.
This episode of Idle Thumbs contains discussion of Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain.
It's true.
It's true. We mentioned that there is this game that exists and that we played it and we talk about playing it. I don't personally consider anything that we talked about spoilers, in part because we don't get into very specific story details, and also because we really only talk about the first several hours of the game, which in the case of this game is like a very tiny percentage of it. But if you are the kind of person who is extremely sensitive to this kind of thing, and I know that when it comes to this particular series, that is more common than with some, if you're going to be bothered by any like minute experiential detail told to you before you've gotten to see it yourself, you can consider skipping to 39 minutes and 30 seconds, and then you will be preserved.
Yeah, I would say, though, if you're on the fence about either Metal Gear Solid 5 itself or listening to this discussion, as someone who did not know a whole lot about the game and who hasn't been following it, I would recommend that you just give it a listen, because why not?
Yeah. It's really not spoilery. I'm only including this because some people are like super hardcore, but I do not think this stuff is spoilery.
You know who you are, and you're ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, enjoy this podcast. First, here is some bullshit about how Nick Breckon is number one.
You're number one.
I'm number one.
Yeah.
Jokes only at the beginning. Well, Nick was talking about how he was number one earlier. That's all you ever really need.
Oh, that's true. Nick is number
good.
one.
The funniest joke.
Me. Oh, that's not true, Nick. You are loved.
Thanks.
Well, I love
I've
this
given
one.
you a card that says you are loved, and then you open it, and it plays like the Star Wars theme or something. It would probably be a even worse card on all fronts if it did try to play like the Luke and Leia theme when you opened it.
No, I mean that's what I that's kind of what you imagine.
If the front of the
If
card
it says
is
you
really-
are loved,
if the front of the card is
like a brother. Oh,
what was he hoping for with a card from you?
I don't know.
I know.
Oh, damn. Really?
We're a singing telegram person.
True.
Those
Did you
were real.
They open the door. Wah, 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 wah.
Nick Breckon. Wait, what? Someone said, "Did you see?"
I was just gonna say, did you see what happens when? You played Metal Gear. This isn't burning the cast.
Better not be.
It's really not. This is not something to mention
Okay.
on the stupid cast. But like,
It's
much better.
Incorrect.
than this.
Incorrect.
You know what? I don't even want to fucking
Well, it's
hear
just
it.
Bert's birthday related. I don't know.
It's September 2nd, 2015.
This is Idle Thumbs 226, and I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Danielle Riendo.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
And I'm Nick Breckon.
Birthday-related Metal Gear.
It's fine.
Nope.
I was just gonna say, did you see that? So you at the beginning of Metal Gear, they have you input your birthday.
Right. They do.
And it was actually like strange to me, that whole sequence of like create a man and input your birthday, and then you're just still Snake and you're still an old
big
guy.
boss and you're
Yep.
still
Like I made a
big
black
guy.
dude who was like
I just-
young and like he had my birthday, and then suddenly I'm just Snake
Yep.
running around. But
That sure is that game.
but anyway, so you input your birthday. What that's for is that on your birthday, when you load up Metal Gear Solid 5 and you go to your base, like Snake, as he is always, he's in his helicopter and like the tense music is playing, and he lands and like the whole base is empty. And so he walks up to the front of the base and he's got his gun up and he's like, I don't know, what's gonna happen? Ruh. And it's somebody just starts playing like a fucking like goofy ass happy birthday song. It's just like it's not like a Sousa march, but it's like almost like an accordion, just like happy birthday. It's like not the happy birthday song though. It's like it's a weird like if I told you a happy birthday
It's an
song exists and then
off-brand.
had you create a happy birthday theme and like independent of knowing what that song is,
Right.
and then all of the like hard ass like Metal Gear guys are just standing in a circle like clapping
Awkwardly.
Snake. But of course they didn't get Kiefer Sutherland to record VO for this, so he just looks at them all like goofily and he's just like heh, 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 he just like
Wait, is your character that you created involved in this?
no.
No, okay,
Yeah, this is
I don't
skipping
know
many
why this
steps.
wasn't just part of our Metal Gear discussion, but
Because I had to
that's
make sure
why
Nick would actually say it.
Yeah, see, this is why.
But our Metal Gear discussion
but the thing that
begins
you're talking about is
now.
an actual like part of the game worth discussing. The fact that it includes the fact that Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain includes name your own character and painstakingly create your own character and then totally ignores that.
Then never use it ever again.
It's amazing. It's like you're in a
I thought so. I skipped
Like,
the
I don't
cutscene right
think
after
this-
that, and so I thought, oh, I must have just skipped the scene where my created character just like
what
exits stage left.
Well, what
and then-
basically happens? So I don't think this is a spoiler because it happens right at the beginning of the game, and
No.
I'm sorry if you consider it a spoiler, but who cares? I mean, it's so like right. This game
It's
has
the
got to
first
be
5 minutes
800
of the
hours
game,
long.
yeah.
Right, okay, so here, let's just say right now, if you are a person for whom Metal Gear Solid games are like,
Sacrosanct.
yeah, just 100%
narrative
sacrosanct, and
experiences.
just even looking at the stupid art on the disc where you to buy this game in a store is enough of a reveal. We're going to talk about it apparently now. Also, that birthday shit is in it already owned. So I guess,
yeah.
yeah, look out.
So the game, I started playing Metal Gear Solid 5 last night. I mean, I played for about 2 hours probably, which was literally like
you
the
played the weird section.
The prologue,
the
yeah.
entire extent of the amount of time that I've had free to play any video games since it came out until recording this podcast. So I filled all my free time with this game, and that amount was 2 hours. And half of it was spent, I think, in the introduction, which is you like shittily crawling through a hospital.
Such a strange,
with
You know what's
Deadpool
funny?
on fire, dude, running around.
Did anybody
Yeah.
play?
Okay, but hold on, but I just want to like really like reiterate this character creation thing. It was amazing. So there is a phenomenon. There's a phenomenon with AAA games in general, just like with any AAA blockbuster thing, be it games or movies, where people who who have conflicted opinions about big blockbuster tentpole entertainment love to play the game or go watch the movie or whatever, and then kind of snarkily tweet about like all the things that are wrong with it, but they still seem to actually like always go see the movie and always go play the game
and paid money to go play the game.
And
see
I
the
feel
movie.
like Metal Gear Solid is the height of this. Like it is the Metal Gear series is the total absolute lord of sucking people in who profess not to be bought into the AAA thing. And I think it's because it's because it's
Let me just tell you why, Chris.
Well, I think
I
it's
have a
because
theory.
me
I have a
what you
theory
think,
as
and
well.
then
Yeah.
I suspect we all probably have a similar opinion about it. I'm guessing, maybe not. I think it's because it is so strange to have a thing that is there is so much money put into it, like just so clearly,
It's just
so
so
many
big.
millions of dollars put into the screen, and is so self-serious and is so wrapped up in its own like 3 decades at this point of lore and continuity, but is also so goofy and weird, and is also such a product of a specific creative voice that is apparent through
So that's
the work.
thing. So it's that, and it's also I think it's so large that it just basically contains multiple games within it.
Yes, for sure.
So you can play this game.
That introduction, that whole
That whole introduction
sequence-
is a completely other game that was
that is
made.
yes, that is basically
for this game.
That is basically a modern
Which, by the way,
walking simulator.
in addition
indie
to the
game.
other separate game that was already released called Ground Zeroes.
Yeah,
that was a whole other game that they made and released.
Which in itself was 90 minutes long. And everybody complained about that because it was a proper whatever packaged release that was very short, even though it was whatever 90 minutes or 2 hours to sort of do the main quest of the game. And now this one is 80 hours or whatever,
I mean,
and
it's-
people
so-
are
So okay, sorry.
But,
Just to
I do
finish,
wanna-
to
I do-
finish my thought really quickly.
Yeah.
The thing I just
Like
described, like
crossfiring today.
well, so just to wrap up what I was saying, like that is, I don't know if any Metal Gear Solid game yet has contained as much evidence of the thing that I just said as this one.
yeah, no, this one's
which
insane.
starts with like the starkest juxtaposition between you bedridden and then you just like painstakingly crawling arm by arm across the floor, and then crazy fucking demons and like sorcerers or some shit. And then the thing that was like the big hilarious troll, which is really the seductive part of Metal Gear Solid games for me, which is just the strangeness, not of the strangeness of like a weird character on screen, but the strangeness
you're talking about
the design of the like that whole character creation thing, which is as almost not quite as, but almost as fully featured as that of like an Elder Scrolls game. And then the doctor who's like, we have to adjust your face so they can't see you, just gets killed after you finish the character creation. Yeah. Presumably then you just aren't able to get it because he's dead now. And that entire thing is just, they implemented that entire thing just as a gag, basically.
No, I think it actually has some relevance. Okay. I think it actually might be your online avatar or something. It definitely saves it. It's definitely something you can change in the menu later.
Got it.
I did want to say because in that sequence,
just my experience of it so far, just being a narrative thing, it's amazing. Anyway, go ahead.
No. So I wanted to totally agree. I had the exact same thought. Why I was thinking last night, why does this feel like a summation of what this series is, and why does this series feel like such a strange thing within AAA big budget, within that sphere? I think it is that they're so big, and that the authorial voice, like, it's super weird because it isn't like a good voice. Like, it's not like a consistent voice. It's not a voice that you can really just like appreciate for its tonal quality. But it is a voice. You recognize it. Like, you go, oh yeah, this is fucking Kojima.
Guy.
This is happening right now. You're crawling on the ground following Kiefer Sutherland, who, by the way, is also I guess this is slight spoiler territory, but whatever. Like, you're playing as Solid Snake, Kiefer Sutherland. There's a man who leads you out of your big boss.
Big boss.
And then there's a man who's leading you out of this hospital who is also you.
Yeah.
He says, by the way, call me Ishmael. I'm going to call you Ahab. And he's leading you out of the hospital. Now, there's a specific shot where Ishmael is leading you out, and you have to, like, everybody, like, has to hit the ground because they're, like, soldiers coming down the hallway. And the camera just, like, it goes up to a bunch of people who are about to be mowed down by these soldiers. The gunshots start flying, and then the camera drifts down to the crack in the bedgown of the Kiefer Sutherland you're following, and just drifts down right to his butt, and then goes back up to the people who are getting slaughtered. And that, to me, really just summed up the whole Hideo Kojima Metal Gear juxtaposition. Just the, extreme gore, violence, Hollywood action, drifting down to the gap in this man's gown for 2 seconds, who, by the way, is not a real person. He's a figment of your imagination.
I feel like all of this...
It feels so much like you see that character model in the scene and then go, you should make the camera drift down to show his butt. Alternatively, if that's conceived from scratch as that is the scene, and he's like, okay, so first you got to make sure that you can see his butt, and then you got to put the soldiers here and the people here, because I'm going to pan the camera down to show his butt, and it's going to be hilarious. Like, either one of those is insane.
Yeah. What makes me laugh so much, because there's another one just like that, where you have to pretend to be dead amongst several soldiers or several civilians who have already been killed. So you and the figment of your imagination is next to you, and all these soldiers come up, and they're firing bullets into the dead bodies to make sure that everyone's totally dead. And you look over and, like, fake Solid Snake or Big Boss or whatever the hell his name is. Fake Boss. There's, like, just water coming out from his crotch area, like, spilling all over the ground.
I thought he was peeing himself.
The joke is that you think he's peeing himself, but it turns out there's just an IV bag underneath him that's been punctured. But, like, in that moment, like, what?
It's obviously framed for you to think...
Yeah, it's out of control. So, anyway,
all of this stuff, I agree with everything you're both saying, but also it sort of goes to my theory that people like this, the same people who say, like, oh, AAA, like, that kind of thing. It's because this is so anime. Like, this whole thing is just so, like, the overdramatic, over the top, just from orbit kind of approach to everything is just the most anime thing ever. And I think that's why people who are like, oh, AAA games, but still really love spectacle, are into this sort of thing.
Really yes weird... and no, though, because I think... So, did you guys play The Evil Within?
Yes.
Because the first section of that game is actually
Oh,
strikingly
God.
similar
Yes.
to the first section of this game.
Oh God, you're
It's
right.
really strange. They both take place in hospitals. They're both sort of tutorial sequences. They're both incredibly over the top. The
Yeah.
Evil Within's opening section was incredibly over the top. I think that didn't get a great reaction from what I recall. I don't think people actually enjoyed that. I don't think... So here's the thing. I think the anime thing is interesting, though, because... I played like 6 hours of this game.
The absurd tone-deaf comedy just showing up in the middle of what is, like, in its sort of genre trappings,
yeah.
like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
I kind of don't mind a lot of I actually, you know what? I'm going to go farther than saying don't mind. I actually like the tonal insanity. I like that there is a weird flaming horse that gets eaten by a flaming whale in the sky.
Oh, the flaming whale. I
And
liked.
also
Yeah.
there's like a tank there.
Yeah.
Like I like that stuff. I don't know if it's good or not, and I don't really know if it means as much as Kojima probably thinks that it means. Honestly, like just being frank. But I like that someone is putting that much money into a thing that is that insane. But I also think it was just 3 times too long. And like,
Yo, it's
Yeah,
anime. It's Japanese.
yeah.
No, I wanted to add to it and say that I actually think that how Japanese the animation and everything feels in this game, I think actually helps it a lot
Sure.
in the rest of the game, which is the real game that they made,
Yeah.
which when you get past this section
Yeah.
is phenomenal. And I'm going to say something right now.
It is. I can already tell it's really,
What
really
I can
good.
say, I'm going to say right now, based on the design of the open world and the systems that they've designed, which are insanely detailed, this is the most Far Cry 2 game.
Yes, I was
yet.
going to say that.
So,
shit.
so
my
and in
God.
fact,
It
I
is.
think after having played 6-7 hours of it, I think it kind of edges out Far Cry 2 on being Far Cry 2. I think it's the new Far Cry 2.
It out Far Cry 2.
I think basically this is everything I want from Far Cry 3 that never had the Far Cry 3 that never actually got
Right.
made. I think this is exactly the game that I wanted, which is that all of these, the open world is constructed such that, so whatever, you're a big boss and you go to Afghanistan and there's an open world that's
This is
not,
during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah, this
yeah,
is in
in
the, in the
1984.
80s. Yeah.
which, you know, is my birthday year and, you know,
Me
probably
too.
several of
Too.
our birthday years, which is strange when you enter your birthday and then suddenly you're
You're in.
I was born in
I was
1984.
a month old.
Maybe if you said
March
a different
31st,
year,
1984. What the-
like, here we are.
yeah.
different game entirely if you enter a
Yeah.
different year.
Right. So
That didn't even
That would
occur to
be
me. That's so
cool.
funny.
yeah, it's really weird. But
What is?
Such a great year.
It was fine. I was 4.
yeah, it's not trying to be the open world that a lot of games are trying to be lately,
not at
where it is tunnel based. Right, there are sections of this world that are set up as like level vignettes that are contained within the tunnels of this world, and I think that's
Which is basically what Far Cry 2 is.
It's basically what Far Cry 2 is. There are checkpoints along the roads
Yes,
in the
also
same
like
way
Far
that Far
Cry
Cry 2
2.
you can, but unlike Far Cry 2, you can actually capture
You
those
can capture them
checkpoints.
permanently, right?
Yeah, which obviously is, you know, what they should have done in Far Cry 2. But
Well,
yeah,
that's debatable, but
I think even Clint admitted that was
Yeah.
probably what they should have done.
I don't think they could have done that without also changing other things. But yeah, go ahead.
True. In any case, the actual levels, oh my god. I haven't seen, I mean, this is like level design as a discipline is very debatable, but you know it when you see like a good level. You know what I mean? Like as a discipline, it's kind of hard to say like what the right way to make a level
Oh,
is.
for sure.
But these levels are fucking fantastic. Like I just played like 2 hours before I came over here, this enormous section of, I mean, like basically the way the game works is you get dropped off at a specific location in the open world, and then you always have to travel the rest of the way to your objective on horseback or on foot. And which is really nice because one, you're not going from one side of the world to the other side every time. It sort of gives you the right, like in terms of pacing, the right amount of like travel time that you want, not too much, not too little, and then just the right amount of things that are in your way, you know. But this like huge like compound in between me and my objective, which I did not expect. I thought, oh, they're just going to be some little shitty things. This enormous amount of detail went into creating this level, and I could tell like stories. Everybody's going to have 1,000 stories from playing this game, but there was just one really specific moment where I panicked. A guy was coming towards me, and I was sort of on a like a dam, like I was on a driveway, I guess, that goes across a dam. and this guy was just
Like
doing
you're on top of the spillway type situation, like GoldenEye map.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like on the top of the Hoover Dam, where you're sort of touring. And I just panicked and just drove the stick left, and I didn't know what the hell was. It was like dark, and I had no idea what I was going to be running towards. And I just noticed like that there was this. God, this is hard to describe, but it was just like this really accurately like believable piece of level architecture that was part of this dam, part of the construction of it. But it wasn't there for aesthetic purposes, and it wasn't there deliberately to get me to see it and go to it. You know what I mean? But it was there, and once I was basically like on this catwalk, I realized like, oh, someone actually like this is a viable tunnel. But then I explored the rest of the level, and there were like 10 other incredibly well thought out paths that were similar to that are totally viable things to do within that level. And it just blew my mind that this tiny little thing off to the side of this enormous mission, which, I don't know, I've played 6 hours and it still says I have 2% of this game completed. Like,
Nice.
This is a fucking insane game. I don't understand how this game got made. I mean, clearly under duress.
Yes.
But like,
yes.
But,
it feels like a really legitimate breakthrough in stealth games.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, I didn't play the sort of side Metal Gear Solid game. I didn't play Metal Gear Online. I didn't play Ground Zeroes. I didn't play those ones. But I played Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, and 4. And for the most part, I really liked Metal Gear Solid 1, and I really liked Metal Gear Solid 3. And I liked things about 2 and 4. But really, across all 4 of those games, there definitely is fun gameplay in them that I enjoyed in a lot of ways, but also I spent a lot of those games just kind of bashing through them.
Yeah.
That, like when you get seen, things just sort of collapse in those games, or at least if you're me, they do.
Well, because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah. And
I mean,
right.
even in levels that are sort of somewhat, Metal Gear 4 was bad for that.
Yes.
For me.
And I don't even think that that's unique to Metal Gear games at all. I mean, that's like kind of a property of stealth games in a lot of ways. I mean, even really good ones, even like Hitman games and things like that. Often they're just catastrophes when they fall apart. And this feels like such a different approach, just fundamentally, to stealth games in a way that is so smart and so well conceived and well executed on the detail level. It's crazy. I mean, I'm not even that far into it.
Yeah.
I'm a 1% in according to the start menu. And it's just so clear how completely well designed it is. It's crazy to me.
So a lot of games have used some of the same mechanics, like the binoculars and marking your targets.
Right.
But it's the first game. No. I just wanted to say it's the first game that actually that makes me actually want to do that and enjoy doing that because of the way that I know the systems are going to interact later in the level. Like I just feel there's just something about the level of fidelity that they built into everything at this point, and the way that they've constructed the missions and the sort of architecture of everything that just it supports it all in a way that just it was like half supported before. Like they had like the resetting of guards before. They had some of these concepts, but they were never really taken to like what they could be, and it feels like this is what it should have been. I mean, this feels like sort of like.
But I don't know if it could have been until like.
Well, yeah,
this feels like you would have need to have gone through so much iteration and so many ideas to arrive.
Oh yeah,
because I just don't know of another game that has all this stuff in it. Really, I mean, like you said, this Far Cry 2 feels like a predecessor to it for like, but there are very few games that have this general philosophy. I feel.
No, it's. I mean, I guess there are some elements of Assassin's Creed for sure. There are a lot of elements of Far Cry. But then there's just a ton of Metal Gear, and it's just a strange amalgamation of all these things.
There are elements that are analogous to Assassin's Creed, but they're using them for totally different purposes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the Assassin's Creed has become this sort of de facto kitchen sink approach to open world, which is you just kind of like evenly spread everything across a huge square that is your world, and you just kind of pepper interchangeable missions
the checklist
throughout
kind
them.
of design.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, checklist side quests.
It feels so uninspired compared to this. Like in
man.
like it's just, you know what I mean? Like
Speaking of which, there are side quests in this game, but one of the first side quests you get is so one thing I really liked right off the bat was you're facing all these Russian enemies, but you can't understand what they're saying. Like you hear the Russian, but they don't translate it for you immediately. Yeah. But one of the first side quests is you can go and capture a Russian interpreter and then send him back to work for you, and then immediately after that point you can have him translate for you. Or oh my god, and then, like,
that's awesome. Yeah.
The other crazy thing too is like when you're on the radio. Like you hear the radio audio, like just got all these fucking little details. Like you hear the radio audio, but then also you hear the local audio, so you get the weird like effect of somebody being on the phone where you also hear like the conference telephone feed coming in.
Yeah.
And then like you capture the guy and like you can interrogate him. And if you know the Russian, then he actually pays attention. If you don't, know it, then he's just like, "What? I don't know what the hell you're talking about," and then you have to hit him in the face. But like.
Like you do.
They've thought of everything. Like, it's insane. If you pull a gun on a guy, he sticks his hands up. Like, what the fuck? Like, and then, like, there's a whole other chain of events, like, branching decisions that go on past that point. Like, each little, like, moment feels like I could take this several different ways, which all of these elements have been done in games before. There are games where you can stick a gun in somebody's face, but not this many and this well thought out,
and related to each other and relevant.
Yeah,
and that's the difference between.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring up the translator thing, because the Assassin's Creed would have been a mission to like capture the Russian interpreter, but it would have had no gameplay relevance. It would have just been a mission about that. You know what I mean? Like,
or just like some other just arbitrary mission that's just there on the map, and it's just the same as like the 40 other ones you've done at the same time.
I've been watching a lot of. My girlfriend is playing it right now, and I'm sort of helping her capture footage and so on and so forth. Weirdly, and this might sound like a bizarre comparison, but it recalls to me almost the sort of fidelity of the Souls games, where every little element has been thought about. It's obviously a different type of game. It's an action,
I know what you mean.
Adventure kind of game, but like every little detail of the world feels like it was actually made for a specific reason, not just, oh, this is cool art from generic spaceship number 3 or whatever. And it also reminded me a little bit of The Witcher, not just for the horse stuff, but for the whole idea that the open world, again, was built with this actual sort of world in mind, and not just, here's an open world, go do these things. Like the quest structure in The Witcher 3 was so awesome because of that, because it felt like every single thing you did actually contributed to your understanding of this world. And
which is
again different because it's a fantasy world, obviously, and this is a little bit more of a real world
all of which
setting.
Is so weird because you experience all that after an hour of just like
the goofiest
essentially random things being thrown into your face. I'm sure like there are things that like Revolver Ocelot shows up and it's like, oh, I remember him from the other. Okay, like I can grab onto that a little bit. Also featuring the best moment for me of the pre-real game section of the game, which is as you're riding alongside that guy, or I guess on the back of his horse. Actually, if you're riding with him on his horse, the game is like does this weird. First of all, the credit sequences, as in Metal Gear Solid 4 as well, and I can't remember if the earlier ones also, but like. As in at least one other Metal Gear Solid game, there are seemingly like 3 credit sequences in a row.
No, there are infinite credit sequences, my friend. Every mission in this game is an episode. And before and after every episode, they run the credits. Before and after. I'm not exaggerating. I've seen Hideo Kojima, creative director, like whatever, lead visionary. I've seen that credit at least 15 times.
Well, also, though, even just in the first 2 credit sequences, he's already in each of them multiple times. But anyway, the thing that the actual thing I wanted to point out was not the real credit sequence, but the credit sequence that comes after the real credit sequence, which is the fictional character credit sequence that like introduces the characters by
they do that for every episode.
By their in-world names. And after they introduce like the several main characters in the first episode, one of the characters they introduce is the actual brand of sunglasses that Ocelot is wearing.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a real sunglass brand.
Yeah.
And that is like given equal like typeset billing as the other characters.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. Like
It's
that is
incredible.
what I'm fucking talking about. Like that, the character creation dispense thing, like those touches are, other than now for the actual like amazing game that's in it, which was kind of a surprise to me. The shit like that is why I play all the way through Metal Gear Solid games, because there is no other game, AAA or indie, that has that shit in it. The indie version of it would be like, the whole point of the game would be that weird, unexpected subversions would be having all the time.
It would be a swearing
that's
game.
like, I mean, like No More Heroes is kind of the game that doubles and triples down on the sort of absurdist
No More
weird
Heroes
stuff.
Or
is
D4.
fundamentally
That's what I
wacky.
mean. Like, it's just, that is what its point is, instead of it just being a thing that shows up in an ostensibly not that moment.
Right. Like, I'm not going to retell the whole thing again because I've already explained how much I love it twice, but like, my favorite moment in any Metal Gear game is Metal Gear Solid 3, where you climb the ladder forever.
Yeah.
Like, shit like that. That is why I play Metal Gear Solid games. It's because sometimes there is a thing that is just there, and it is just an odd choice that no one else would ever put in a game that costs $80 million, which is how much this game cost to make.
Yeah.
No one else does that.
I mean, just the fact that you can attach a balloon to any man that rifles him up into the sky
Or
at
bear.
any time in the game.
That's a real thing, by the way.
I
not
know
in
it
the way
is.
that it's portrayed in this game.
If
But
you've
like,
watched Batman, you've seen it already. But yeah, it's
Really?
it's been used in fiction in sort of pop
I didn't know
fiction.
that.
Oh yeah, Batman escapes Hong Kong by way of deploying a balloon that a plane picks up and scoops
I mean,
him
the
away.
CIA
that's a
actually-
real thing. That's a
yeah.
real technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman made it.
That's right.
It's Wayne Enterprises.
God, have you gotten to the base yet? Have you gotten to the mother base? So when you get to the mother base, like they tell you that, oh yeah, if you attach the balloons to people, they'll actually go back to the base and they become your like little agents. And so there's a whole base building thing, and you assign people to be your
resource
R&D
collection.
team or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's hilarious about it is that in the tutorial for this like, mechanic, Ocelot's just like, oh, Snake, we'll get some guys out here to show you how this works. Anyway, here's our first guy, and the guy runs up and he's like, hello, sir! And he's just like, so why don't you try punching him? And so you just punch this guy who's like your friend, who's like they're just like, yes, sir! I'll do anything you want,
He's
sir!
your
And you
lackey.
fucking knock him out, and then you attach a balloon to him, and then he flies up into the air, ostensibly to fall right back down again, because that's where he lives already. But then, like, another guy comes out, he's like, okay, now try throwing this guy to the left. He's like, hello, sir! It's just... it just goes on for like 7 dudes. You just beat the shit out of all of your like
All of
helper
your
army.
minions.
It's hilarious. And you can, and by the way, when you're running around the base, you just like all these guys are just saluting you. But the second you even like run into them at all, they just get like hip checked to the side. And so
Assassin's Creed style?
yeah. So whenever
God.
you're at your base, you just like are just knocking all of these people down who are just there working for you like 24/7.
You know what's funny is that is weirdly foreshadowed in the introduction during the part where with the butt, where there's a lot of people in a hallway, and your character is like moving through them, and for some reason, every person, there's like poor people who are about to get mowed down. Every person, he just like shoves them out of the way for no apparent reason.
Yeah. You can just punch everyone
He's not
on
a
your team
gentleman.
for no reason.
This big boss.
Anyway, it's a strange game.
Yeah, it is so much better. It's so much better than I thought it was going to be. I really thought I guess I just, my MO now is to not watch not read previews, not watch pre-release things. Just in general, like I just don't really do much of it. And I just kind of assumed this was going to be like Metal Gear Solid 4, and probably different in some ways, but basically that. And it is so. Just the core game is so impressive. I am honestly amazed.
The one, I guess the last thing I'll say about it is that the Far Cry 2 thing, so what I try to do in Far Cry 2 for the most part is set up, I mean, it's like the thing that we were doing when we were streaming it. I like to set up like ambushes. I like to approach a situation, make a choice, and then like go all in on that choice. Right. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do with this mission? I know that there are infinite things I could do because the game is allowing those things, infinite things, and that's why the game is brilliant. If those choices are there, and then I like to just say, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, sort of have a mental plan, and then try to execute it. And usually you die and go back, and it's hilarious. This game is all about that when you get into the meat of it, and just the way that they've structured everything, like the design of it is just like, it's perfect. It's just, they've nailed it in a way. And I played Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 and Assassin's Creeds, and nobody's really done it to this level of execution. It's really goddamn impressive. Like And I guess the way I would categorize it, and I think the thing that's so impressive to me, is that it feels oddly restrained. Like it's not.
Yeah.
When you're on a hill overlooking this dam, I'm not gonna jump on a hang glider and fucking throw a bomb at somebody from the air and then like 3-point land and do a thing. That's just the game doesn't allow for that. Maybe it does later, but right now, 6 hours in, it's just no. I'm not gonna. There's no way I could even do anything remotely like that. I would just instantly die. Actually, you wouldn't instantly die. It would just end up a mess, And like the game is sort of reinforcing you to do not the stealth playthrough necessarily, but to just like make smart, interesting choices. And those choices are like broad, oh God.
So
just limiting you slightly, which to me is like that the choice of allowing you to pick one way or another way on sort of the open world, right? But you can't just run over the mountain, Like they're narrowing the choice space enough to make it mentally interesting, and then also like within each moment, then it just sort of increasingly branches. I guess it's sort of the
for sure. I like this was I guess probably my closing thought, but you saying that really. I referred to this game as a stealth game earlier, and I said that it feels like a real, advancement in stealth games. But really, I think it's probably not actually a stealth game. I think what you're talking about, and I feel this way for sure, is that any game that has any game that is about combat, right, and like surpassing enemies and sort of things like that, right, like that those kinds of dynamics. If it's going to have enough systems in it that all talk to each other, and it's going to be interesting enough to allow you different ways to achieve a problem, you have to be vulnerable. Otherwise, there's no point in engaging with all those systems. And that makes it kind of a de facto stealth game. But the thing that makes it not a stealth game is that it isn't like a binary state of being stealthy or not.
Right.
That's just part of it. It's just that by having that be any of it,
yes,
it is more of that than the vast majority of action games,
I think,
which don't require that kind of restraint.
Like Dishonored falls into that category for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely.
And yeah. I'm glad.
And even Far Cry 2. Like Far Cry. No one calls Far Cry 2 a stealth game simply because the tropes of it as a first-person shooter, just people don't associate that with that terminology. And in that sense, neither is this game. They're both in that same category of like careful games. I guess like you have to be
games
careful.
with consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean that's actually the thing I enjoy about this game is that I know I'm not trying for a no-kill playthrough or anything.
Right.
I don't actually enjoy that typically, and with this game, I just feel like it's kind of limiting because the moments that are so satisfying is when you try to be careful.
Right.
And then no longer can be careful because you've screwed something up, or actually typically. What I enjoy about this game is it's not that you screwed something up; it's that something surprised you. And there's so many surprising moments, like just riding down riding on your horse, and just a truck pulls up. That happens all the time. Just like weird things in this game are just like they're not triggered. They're not really systemic in the sense that these things aren't happening all the time. I don't really know how a lot of these systems work yet. I guess I'm sure they'll become apparent, but it's really surprising, and. Like even just like hiding in a barrel, which you can, or not a barrel, I guess, but whatever, like the dumpster,
the cardboard box,
the classic Dishonored thing. I feel like in this game, I've done it maybe 5 times and really not known in any of the cases whether or not what it was going to lead to. And I think in almost every case, it led to something different. It wasn't that they caught me. Like one time, a guy threw a grenade in. The other time, they just completely had no idea.
Yeah.
Another time, I surprised a guy and knocked him out. And there were like 1,000 different results for that one mechanic. And I think there's just a really intense level of variety that they've built into almost any situation. It's insane. I don't know how they made this game. It's ridiculous.
Super impressive.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Metal Gear Solid conversation. I said like nothing in that because I just sat here the entire time going, holy crap, I did not know that was what Metal Gear Solid 5 was.
Well, I'm like Chris, I read no previews. I played Ground Zeroes the day before this came out, so I really had no idea what this was going to be either. Really surprising and nice, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't expect a good game. this year, I guess. I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, especially given all the shit with Konami and Kojima and
Yeah.
everything. Like, given that kind of drama, you almost never expect, like, a really, truly transcendent, great, polished thing to come out of that
Well,
relationship.
most of the end of 4 really left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, I feel like the beginning
Sure.
section I enjoyed, and then
Me too. I really liked the opening of that game.
I beat that game, but I think the last
did
8
too.
hours I
Yep.
just really didn't care.
The last
about.
8 hours, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That game in the game, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Should I talk about dads in space?
Maybe we should take a break
Or
and then
break.
talk about like a bunch of games that are not Metal Gear Solid 5 because I feel like that was a whole half an episode probably.
probably so. Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do it.
Take a break.
And then dads.
Ooh.
This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by MeUndies, an excellent provider of high-quality underwear and basic undergarments that you can find at MeUndies.com/thumbs. They're very good, high quality. I like them a lot. If you're recording a podcast in an unair-conditioned, stuffy room with 3 other people,
Really helps.
it can get questionable down there. It's just warm, you know. So
No,
you need
things just heat up.
yeah, you need the right underwear
That's right.
for sure.
For any situation, you
Mm-hmm.
need the right underwear. That's right.
Yep. MeUndies.com/thumbs. You will get 20% off your first order, and shipping is now free on all orders in U.S. and Canada.
Ooh.
Yeah, that is a nice new universal perk at MeUndies.com. But also,
Deliver you some nice new underpants.
Yeah.
And MeUndies.com/thumbs. They will know that we sent you and give you 20% off your first order.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks, MeUndies.
Thanks, MeUndies.
MeUndies.com/thumbs.
You're like, I don't wear underwear.
You're number one.
Speak for yourselves. I'm number one.
Number one. Number one.
This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by NatureBox, a delicious
right.
snack subscription service that will send all kinds of tasty treats directly to your home or office. And if you go to naturebox.com/thumbs, you will get your first box of NatureBox on them.
Ooh.
Yes, naturebox.com/thumbs. We love NatureBox. We have eaten so much NatureBox. It is shocking.
Those Big Island pineapples
Big
are
Island
delicious.
pineapple slices, gotta have them. Yep, you gotta have those ranch peas.
Oh, yeah.
I've noticed that multiple podcasts specifically call out, like, because NatureBox advertises on a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Big Island Pineapple is called out by a ton of podcast
Really
hosts.
good.
It's really good.
It is good.
They're
Eat
delicious.
Them. You eat them.
Here's the thing, though. If you follow our advice, get that Big Island pineapple, aren't so much into it, their snacks are guaranteed. You will let the helpful folks at NatureBox know, and they will replace it in next month's box.
And then you can
Oh,
let Idle
nice.
Thumbs know, and we will let you know that you were wrong about the Big Island Pineapple because it is delicious.
really
It is.
good.
they're
So
really
go to naturebox.com/thumbs, fill out a goddamn form, and have snacks sent to your house on them, first box, and then just sign up and have a bunch of them sent to you forever.
good. Yeah, because they're good.
They're
Yeah.
good.
Thanks, NatureBox.
I'll be buried with my final NatureBox.
You'll be buried
buried
in
in
your
your
final
final
NatureBox.
In your MeUndies, in your final
You'll
nature
eat
box.
your way into it and lay yourself to rest.
I'll die happy and comfortable.
Yep.
Yay.
To create more nature boxes with your
With your soul.
your remains.
with your remains.
That's not how NatureBox works. Sorry, NatureBox, naturebox.com/thumbs.
NatureBox is people.
On them, get on
NatureBox is people.
Are we back?
Let's be back.
I love being
have
back.
really exciting things to tell you about dads in space.
All right.
Yes.
Is that a game?
No, well, I played 2 games about dads in space.
All right.
Yeah. They're
Why
pretty
not?
cool. They're both pretty cool, but very different. The first one is called Corpse of Discovery. And this game,
I have never heard of this.
in this game, it's small, tiny little indie game, and it is a first-person exploration game where you play as a lone astronaut. A lot of sort of vibes of Moon, the Duncan Jones movie Moon,
yeah,
which
I
I
love that
love. It's a great movie. So you're alone.
Big moon fans here on this
A lot
podcast.
of moons. A lot of good moons.
I'm
happening.
both the movie and the moon.
and the
Yeah.
orbital
And the-
body.
And the
and the-
celestial object.
Yes. The thing made of cheese in the sky. It's not really made
Danielle's
of cheese.
not a big moon fan, apparently. Got some outdated info there,
Yeah,
but
we just detected a fake moon fan.
I like fake gamer moon fan. Yeah. So in this game, you're basically you're playing as this lone astronaut, and you work for the core of Discovery. And they are just sort of this big, unfeeling corporation, and,
or corpsoration.
Is it a corpsoration or a corporation?
More like it.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right, because that's the play on words in the title. All right. You wake up, you don't know what's happened, really. All you know is, oh, it's my last mission, and I have to do all this stuff, and you get your mission of, you have to place all these beacons around the planet. And as you first wake up in your living quarters, you see all these like pictures that your children drew, and you get to sort of like get messages from your family that are saying like, we miss you so much. We miss you. We wish we could see you more often because you're off on this far flung planet. And your sort of robot companion keeps telling you about like, oh, you're doing such a great job. You're going to get to go home after this. If you keep working hard, you're going to get to go see your family again. And that's sort of the premise of the game. And I won't spoil anything, but of course there's sort of other things going on. It's not exactly like Moon, but it's the sort of tone of Moon where like, yeah, this shitty corporation is ruining everybody's life and like making them feel like they just have to keep working and working and working. And then maybe look at sort of the carrot at the end of the carrot at the end of the stick. That's not the right term.
Cheese at the end of the
moon. Yes, the cheese at the end of the moon. I liked it. I thought it was
moon rainbow.
Yeah,
you get to eat your moon rainbow with your moon Skittles. It's really delicious.
Why not?
I thought it was like a good sort of meditation on the whole like work-life balance sort of idea, but done in this kind of cool way with astronauts in space. And it's actually very pretty. It's like a very, very nice sort of high fidelity indie game where you're going to all these different planets and seeing all this weird wildlife and all this other stuff. So you're doing interesting things moment to moment, more so than in a lot of other kinds of games of this type. Like the actual, I guess you could call it a whatever walking simulator, but you are sort of doing these objectives as well, like find wildlife or place beacons and weird things. And there's always interesting obstacles and stuff. So I thought this was cool. The other game about a dad in space that I played is Stasis, which is awesome. It is fantastic. It's a point-and-click adventure game, sort of very classic style. You're playing as sort of an avatar, your little dude.
Top-down.
It's isometric, sort of top-down. And it is just a really, really, really well-done, well-written, atmospheric point-and-click adventure game. Very much in the style of, it feels like if you took Alien Isolation and sort of the oppressive nature of that game and the way in which, again, it's sort of telling the story of like a shitty corporation that made things poorly and
classic
that sort of thing.
Exploiter of dads.
Basically, yes, classic exploiter of dads. It feels like Alien Isolation, but made into a really awesome point and click kind of adventure game style. And yes, you are also a dad trying to sort of find your family. That's your, you wake up and you don't know what's going on. You were in stasis. That's the name of the game, and you have to figure things out. And of course, there's some weird experiments and weird things going on this derelict ship that you find yourself on. So it's very much classic sort of sci-fi horror tropes, but it's done really, really well. Like the writing is fantastic. The atmosphere is awesome. There's a lot kind of going on. I was immediately sort of sucked into the mystery of like, what happened here? Which, that's pretty much the most important thing in that style of game. So I would highly recommend that one as well.
Nice.
Cool.
And that's my Dads in Space segment.
Man, I just watched a little bit of video of Corpse of Discovery. That game is nice looking.
It's beautiful.
It's really cool.
It's absolutely beautiful. Very colorful, and like just the assets look really nice.
It's funny, in the last couple of years, I mean, we're working on Firewatch, which is a game set in the woods. It feels like games set in the woods and in the outdoors were made reasonably achievable in the last couple of years, so a lot of people have been doing them. It seems like we are now we've cusped over to space is fucking easy to do.
Space is getting to that point.
I wonder if that came about with like image-based lighting, with sort of being able to have the sun light your world really well in that high contrast way that looks natural, because now you can make a space station that has that really high contrast NASA sun coming through, and then your planet can have that soft look, and that just comes from literally having a directional light from a star. But sorry for getting into that for half a second, but just like...
No, it's awesome.
Everyone's all about nice fucking looking space right now. It's weird. I welcome it.
Yeah.
Who doesn't welcome sweet space being all over the place?
Sweet moon space. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Those are too cool. Oh, and I'll just say that I played it because it's cool. Yoshi's Woolly World continues to be very beautiful. I mean, it's coming out soon, and I played a couple of auto-scrolling levels that were way more difficult than most Yoshi sort of levels.
Yeah, everything
They were
from that
good.
game looks very nice. It looks like a game I want.
It's really beautiful. I played it with one of the giant Yarn Yoshi amiibo in my lap. He was cuddling me. Then people at Nintendo probably thought I was super weird because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna cuddle your stuffed animal while I play the game," and I'm sure nobody else did that. But
whatever. Between
It's
Super
fine.
Mario Maker and the new Yoshi game, it feels like if you you cannot be more happy. I feel like right now as a person who wants Nintendo platformer stuff that is not just more new Super Mario Brothers, which is what it feels like they were just churning out for a while. It's really cool.
It's really, really
You have a
great.
Wii U, right?
I do. It's been Sean has had it at his house forever. Oh, this reminds me. Sorry, Super Mario Maker.
Oh, yes.
I had an idea conceptually for a level that I want to know from you, Danielle, as a person who's played more of it, if it's even possible.
Okay.
So the idea that I had for my 4-level Super Mario Maker campaign is literally the exact same geometric structure. But the paths that you can take are determined by the physics of the Mario that you're playing. So the first time you played through it, you played as Mario 1 Mario. And am I incorrect that in Mario 1, can you scroll backwards? You can't.
No.
In Super
I
Mario
don't think you
Maker, when you
can.
play with Mario 1 set, can you only go...
I think you can only go
I think you can
forward.
only go...
Yeah, I'm
because
pretty
it was a big
sure.
fucking deal in Mario 2 and 3, I think.
That you could go back and
the
forth,
other
yeah.
direction. So if the first time you play through the level, you can only go from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. Then you play as Mario 3 Mario, and suddenly it's revealed that another route is available if you go the other direction from the spawn point.
Yeah.
And you can also fly. But then with Mario World, there'd be a path out, and the Mario World exit would only be available if you do sort of like the cape chaining stuff. And then when you play with New Super Mario Brothers controls, you'd have to be able to wall jump to get through parts that just otherwise look like sort of constrained gaps between pipes, but literally it's the same level layout. I'm sure someone will do that.
That's
where
a
like
really cool
the
idea.
enemies
Yeah,
are the
that's
same.
awesome.
Literally, you just build one map that 4 different Marios can complete in 4 different
that's
ways.
Crazy. You'd
That
have to,
sounds amazing.
You'd have to test the fuck out of that map.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'd also, I mean, can you dupe maps and then edit them, or would you have to like
I don't
graph
know.
it on graph paper yourself and then go
Well,
and like
you as
build
a
it 4
person,
times?
you'd have to basically you can switch which Mario you're playing as.
Right, but
in
if you have to,
yeah.
if you have to, these have to be saved as 4 different levels.
I don't know.
without
I don't
4
know enough
different
about the
Marios.
intricacies of Mario
Yeah.
Maker, but that
I think you can. I could be wrong, but I think you can because like there's a functionality for like save this as a template level and,
Right.
and that
Oh,
sort
then you
of
could-
thing.
you
Yeah,
could totally do that.
I'm pretty sure you can do that with your own.
I'm sure this is a
things,
thing
yeah.
that people either are already doing or will do a shitload of. But I was thinking about that this morning and just went, "Oh man, you could totally
That's
like
a cool idea.
have only the base level items available, and it's just the movement nuances of the 4 different Marios that actually, or like plus enemy behaviors, plus whatever else, but
Right.
you could not change the tile layout at all. I don't know. That was my
You
weird.
should make that.
I do
mean, I
not have
guess-
the time
I
to
guess-
make that. I have the time to say it on a podcast.
I guess that means your tile layout is limited to Mario 1.
Not necessarily. I mean, I guess if you want to be really crazy about it, yes, but because you can, they have things that can backport, right? You can,
Yeah.
But I mean, like if you,
if you want to be really hardline about it, yes.
yeah.
But then
you
like,
want to be a purist.
but then like, like the way Mario, it depends on how subtle you want to get with it. Like if you really want to be like Mario World's acceleration and jump physics means you can reach a tile slightly differently than Mario 3's, as opposed to like, I want a question mark block to be able to give you a cape if you're playing in Mario World. Like that's sort of where you draw the line of sort of how hardline you get. If it's literally just Mario's run and jump mechanics, or if it's like you support at least the base
right. I see what
items
you're
of the
saying.
different
Yeah,
Marios.
yeah, right,
And
yeah.
you could probably be a hardcore maniac.
Well, the way
and-
you could do that, I guess, is by having the cape one be inaccessible to Mario. Is there
Oh my god! So you like if you somehow do it so that Mario World Mario, like if you ran to maximum run speed and jumped, if you knew that Mario 3 Mario would like land on a lower platform,
Right,
whereas
exactly.
Mario World Mario
Right.
is the only one that could achieve the
Yeah.
slightly higher
I
platform.
don't know enough about Mario physics.
I don't know
if
either.
that
I don't
is
know how
like-
nuanced that stuff
Yeah.
is because man, if you built it like that, you would be such a lord.
So that it would only be possible for each
Yeah, like
individual
if-
Mario
that's-
to
yeah.
interact with things from their game or below, basically.
yeah. Oh man,
That would be really cool.
that would be a hardcore
what would
level.
you call it?
I don't know.
Backward compatible Mario.
Yeah.
4 Marios.
Yeah.
As a dumb nod to the
4
weird, like,
Marios.
what was it, like 256 Marios? Or what was the
Oh my
Yeah.
No, that was
yeah.
Super Mario 128.
128.
This is Super Mario 4 is what you call this.
Super Mario 4. I love this idea.
But okay, but But didn't Miyamoto constantly refer to like that tech demo as
It was Mario 128.
No. I think it was 128 Marios. Like the official Nintendo
In like
way
in
of
a
phrasing
Wada
the
asks
tech
or
demo
something. Yeah, he
was
kept
referred
calling
to it
that.
as like the plural number of Marios.
128
And, like,
Marios.
fans always.
I mean, there were 128 Marios to be
They were running
fair.
around, yeah.
I mean,
That was always demoed just as Super Mario 128. I'd never heard of it as called anything other than that.
I feel like he called it that in like Iwata Asks
Maybe that's what I'm
interviews or
thinking of.
something.
Okay, maybe. I
feel
didn't-
like I've seen
I
that
really, I
somewhere.
didn't follow.
You guys probably know better than I
I didn't follow Mario 128 past that tech demo for the
we have to get
GameCube.
to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
This is important.
This is all
Anyway,
Miyamoto.
that was my dumb Mario Maker idea that I
Isn't
think is
that
actually
dumb?
cool.
That's great.
It would require someone way cooler than me, because the only way that you could probably differentiate the like acceleration curves of those Marios is to have the beginning of the level drop you off like a 300 screen high cliff to like really draw out the arcs of their different landing distances over time.
Oh man.
But well, I don't really know. I don't know enough about the different Mario jump physics. I'm sure there's a YouTube video showing all of the perfect arcs
Yeah.
of max acceleration versus where they land.
I think this has actually probably been figured out to an incredible degree.
In that case, someone could just make that fucking Mario Maker level now. Please
Yeah.
do.
I
And
think
put
they-
idlethumbs.net and coins in it.
Please make it. Yes.
I mean, my after watching Games Done Quick this summer and watching the Mario speedrunners, they all know exactly.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the
I know
level
that
of-
all that information is figured out.
No,
to-
I know,
to-
I know, yeah.
To a high degree. I just don't. What I don't actually know, off the top of my head, obviously, is just literally the difference in jump distances and acceleration rates and all that other crap. But I know it's different from.
It's
game
just
to
it was
game.
just surprising to me that all those guys were just so just knew exactly, like they were just talking about it as they were playing it and going like, oh yeah, like as you can see here, Luigi in this version, blah 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 blah. It's just like, oh my god,
This pixel, yeah.
I don't even think. I think I read one of those Iwata asks, and I think one of the designers was like, "Is Luigi any different?" I don't even remember. Like, I don't like the people who
That's always
actually
how
like
it
get
is,
to the
yeah.
bottom of these games. It's very impressive.
Fascinating.
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, that's cool.
Speaking of Mario Maker, I have no transition. You wanna
It's a
talk
cool game. I think I can finally say that now because the review embargo was up.
Oh, it's good.
It's great.
No one would have seen that coming from last
Yeah,
week when you gushed about it
definitely
for the
not.
whole episode.
Yeah, definitely not, right?
Chris, you played Lara Croft GO, and I also played that, so we should talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
That's my brilliant segue into
like
that
it.
game.
Nice thing.
Yes.
Lara Croft GO is a mobile game from Square Enix Montreal, the same people who made Hitman
Is it? Did
GO.
they make this one? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
They
cool.
did, because their logo is the E from Square Enix turned on its side to make an M, and that comes up at the beginning of the game.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
We talked about Hitman GO a few times on the podcast, I think, because we were very surprised by it. Hitman GO, it took the really, really, really bare bones concept of you are a hitman and there are people who you are taking down to get to your target, and turned it into a turn-based
puzzle game.
a turn-based board game puzzle game. And Lara Croft GO, as you could probably guess, is them taking the Tomb Raider IP and applying it to that. Lara Croft. Sorry. Lara.
Laura, oh my god!
Lara.
Yes.
And I've been playing a fair amount of it. I mean, not
me
a
too.
ton. I'm into sort of the third chapter of what seems like probably 2x that number of chapters, but I kind of want to. I played some Hitman GO and liked it a lot. And then, but I gave up on Hitman GO pretty quick, actually, because I found it hard. And also, even though I really enjoyed that game, sort of for what it was doing, I found it like so sterile that I was actually put off from it, even though I respected it a lot. Whereas, like, because Hitman GO, it looks like it kind of like plays as if it's looking like a sort of mid-century, like 1950s, 60s, really
Yeah,
sleek
it
modernist
does, yeah.
board game. But what it actually is like creepy, sanitized architectural mock-ups of people's houses that you're kind of planning attacks in.
Yeah.
So it ends up having this weird, very creepy, sterile feeling, which I like a lot.
Which is actually, to be fair, really Hitman. I mean,
Yeah,
Hitman,
it is.
Hitman actually
It is,
is evocative of what Hitman is, which is
Yeah.
like, I'm in this really clean house about to splatter somebody's brains
Right,
all over their stupid
Yeah.
clean
In
carpet.
Hitman Go, it kind of plays with that. Hitman Go almost feels like if there was a television show of Hitman.
Yeah.
Hitman Go
That's
is the
exactly-
high concept
yep.
idea that would be the opening credits, where
Yep.
there's sort of like
Yeah,
a
it
mid-century
totally
board
does.
piece, but
Yeah,
then just
yeah.
goes and like whimsically knocks over
Yep. It's
the
like,
guard.
Oh my God,
open
yeah.
to Dexter or something.
Yeah. But the and Hitman Go, it awards you challenges like you managed to do without killing anyone, or you managed to kill everyone, or you did it in X, you got to the goal in X number of turns, and all these things. It's very, very, very clean, very methodically thought out puzzle game. Lara Croft Go has the same like basic trappings. You play as Lara Croft. The game takes place from that same kind of isometric view, but still actually in 3D. So there's a little bit of perspective, and it's very showy visually. But it kind of just presents like you took an actual Tomb Raider tomb or like jungle environment and then quantized it down to a series of nodes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't try to present itself as like an aesthetic representation of Tomb Raider. Like Lara Croft is rendered with really detailed and fluid animation. If you try to go in a direction the board game doesn't support, she sort of starts and backs up the way that like you approaching a cliff edge in a really high fidelity game would work. And like it's incredibly well lit. You go in and out of actual like caverns and old tombs and into jungles and stuff. And it was actually it was a little bit off-putting to me at the beginning because I really liked the way that Hitman Go abstracted stuff. Like the beginning of Lara Croft Go is in a tomb, and it feels almost like a AAA studio's interpretation of Monument Valley or something almost, where you're sort of sliding along this isometric space. You're inside this cavern. It's lit by a torch. It's like really aesthetically strong. And then you pop out into a jungle. And then the first thing that she does, there's an enemy of like an idling, just coiled up snake. And when you move on to the snake thing, she just goes, pulls out a pistol and fucking headshots a snake.
Punk so many fucking snakes in this game.
Yeah.
This game should be called Lara Croft Snake Murder.
Snake
It should be called
Explorer.
Lara Croft Go Kill Snakes.
Yeah.
You kill so many snakes.
The thing-
I have never killed so many snakes.
You probably actually killed a shitload of snakes in Tomb Raider.
Not this many
Not
snakes.
this many snakes. There's a lot of
And in Up.
In the up
In the Up video.
in the up game. And it actually
Don't forget that Up game.
I had an arc
You don't
classic.
even need an old man to kill snakes.
You do,
No,
yeah. Laura, you just in this one, just you have a fucking pistol. It really put me off for a minute because I got so into this sort
know,
of
me
just
too.
I'm traversing the cave and like there's like if you move a couple nodes, like the rock starts breaking from under you on a loose tile, then you have to go back around and you'll drop. But the thing is, I think that at the end of the day, what's actually going on is it's just a way slower ramp up to what is good about this game than Hitman Go was. Hitman Go was like fucking clockwork, the way that it ramps up its difficulty, whereas Lara Croft, I think they wanted to seat you in the atmosphere and they wanted to do all these things, but eventually you get to the place where there's turn-based enemies that have predictable patterns, where there are some that are on patrol. There are enemies that will, if you aggro them by getting within a tile of them, they'll follow you around, so then you can use the traps and stuff to make them sort of be their own undoing, or get them to walk into the path of the other creatures and they'll attack each other. And and there's like saw blades that have patrol patterns that you can slot around, kind of like Monument Valley, where you can change the position of stuff on the board. And even though I sort of like intellectually enjoy the purity of Hitman Go, I'm probably liking playing Lara Croft Go more. And now that I'm into the levels that have enough sort of figurative and literal moving parts, that it really does like it doesn't have the like turn the world isometric thing that Monument Valley had, but I feel like I'm in that space where there's just a puzzle with a shitload of moving parts inside of it, and every time you move, the world reacts, and just it has more of that clockwork feel to it. Whereas Hitman Go felt more like you were like trying to stare at the board and then just mastermind, be 5 moves ahead of everything, so you could just go boom, 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 and create your Hitman montage. This feels more like you're exploring the space and sort of poking and prodding at the world and seeing how it reacts. And I'm glad that I stuck with it enough that difference hit for me. Also, it just does look very, very nice for
It
a
is
mobile
really
game.
pretty.
It's really pretty.
I agree with everything you say.
Is that your take at all on this thing?
Yeah,
approximately?
for sure. I also, yes, I agree. I think it's interesting. I mean, I was probably less bothered, I guess, by the sort of austerity of Hitman Go. But
I don't think that I was bothered by it, but I just never got, like, I was unable to sort of just pour myself into that game.
Yes, I like the kineticism of this game more in a way that feels nicely taken from the Tomb Raider games that do that well. And the difference in tone between the two really makes them seem even more to me like board games than before. Not in the sense that they play any more like board games, but in the way that so much of a board game is the just sort of like decision that is made to take a certain suite of mechanics and then attach a certain theme, and how the exact same mechanics basically in two different contexts can have really different meanings, and in some cases be much more effective with an appropriate theme.
Yep.
When I started playing Lara Croft GO, it felt very different to Hitman GO, and then the more I played it, the more I realized, okay, they're actually using a lot of like very, very similar
the way that sort of enemies
mechanics.
work, and like in Hitman you can throw the rock to distract a guard, whereas in this you can pick up the spear that you can throw.
Yeah. I mean, they're different, but they get more similar as you get more things, because they kind of use a few of the same tricks.
Yep.
Even though, again, there are mechanical differences, but nonetheless, it really made me think, oh man, like they're basically taking the same underlying principle and just slapping a different coat of paint on it. And I don't mean that as dismissively as maybe I phrased it, but like, it's cool. It's actually really cool to see, wow, this is a really, really great mobile game approach.
Just like the sort of their rule set and their approach. But yeah, I think...
And it feels less shitty than the version of it that is sort of in vogue on the App Store, which is the sort of free-to-play like hero thing that is happening, that everything is now.
Yeah, there's no cooldown elements in any of these games or any of that stuff. But yeah, it is cool that even though their core is so similar, and as you said, is revealed to be increasingly similar as more of it sort of is revealed, the way that you sort of experience the world in Hitman Go feels surprisingly like it fires a lot of the same synapses in your brain that playing Hitman does.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said of Lara Croft GO versus Tomb Raider, as far as just sort of... Like in Hitman Go, I feel like you have more of an ability to sort of scroll around the map and observe sort of the bigger picture, whereas in Lara Croft Go, it's way more about just the immediate area around you, and the only way that you really reveal is by exploring the space and making an internal map of the area. Is that true or not?
Yeah, that is kind of true. And when you phrase it that way, it kind of makes each Go game more similar to the opposite of its console like projector.
I guess that's true, but I mean, when I think of Hitman games, I end up still thinking about trying to get to a vantage point where I can look down and watch a couple guards go around or sort of hide.
Yeah, but you don't get that in advance, whereas in a Tomb Raider game,
it sweeps around the fucking space,
which is always such a fun moment to see.
Yeah, but my feeling still in the moment of a Tomb Raider game is that I'm wandering down a cavern with a torch.
You're trying to get past the next thing. Yeah.
But you're right though that from a totally top level point. Whoops, but
I mean, whatever. I think it totally works.
Yeah,
like, they both emotionally work in the sense that Hitman Go feels very clinical, and Tomb Raider and Lara Croft Go feels very reactive, and in that way they correctly.
It's cool.
Kind of grab from their.
It's really nice to see. I don't know where Hitman Go came from. It feels like I don't know the story of that game at all. Like, was that a
development?
Was that like a mandate that you will develop this, or was that like because like I remember hearing that Hearthstone was not like a corporate mandated thing at all, and that was completely the opposite direction of a team was like, this is probably a thing that we should be making and is a really good idea, even though it flies completely in the face of what our studio makes.
They had to push
and
for it.
like that game coming out expanded the breadth of what modern Blizzard is doing, and I wonder which side of that direction.
Yeah,
like, was that a push or a pull for the sort of what is now the Go series
of
games from Square Montreal? Someone probably knows.
Yeah,
I think it's been reported, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I wonder if that's on the internet.
Someone in Montreal knows, I think.
Yeah, some Canadian.
Some of those Canadians know.
But I'm glad that they are coming out. I mean, I don't know how many other series of these can exist, but I'm glad that
Deus Ex.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
that would actually be
That would be cool.
phenomenal.
They're probably scared of making Deus Ex Go.
You
You've got to
think?
be a little bit. Well, cause, I mean, I guess if you start with Hitman, you're starting with the one that is about snooping. But
Snooping and hacking.
the track record so far for me personally is strong enough that I would be curious to see what that team does when trying to do when their weird virtual board game label produces a Deus Ex game. I'd be really curious to see what it is.
Yeah. Oh man,
Could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mobile game, the Deus Ex mobile game, was actually quite good, believe it or not, on iPad.
Really?
It wasn't bad.
I played the PC version of that game, and I thought it was kind of a.
You guys don't agree, are you? Is what you're trying to say?
Well, okay, I it's been a while, so my recall isn't as good as I would want it to be. Recall.tumblr.com. But I remember it feeling like I want a game of this scope. I just didn't actually think that one was that great. It's kind of how I felt about it. I'm like, I at this point, I felt like I was just kind of going through the motions again and again. But it made me excited for the possibility of people making a AAA style game, but of like severely reduced scope and kind of like fidelity in a way that I liked.
You played Republique.
Yes, yeah, that's kind of like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
that game was cool.
that scratched that itch.
Yeah,
I mean, it came out later.
I'd buy
and
that. Yeah,
Thinking about it now, I mean, I liked it at the time, the Deus Ex mobile game. But I haven't played it in 3 years or whatever it was.
Whatever it was,
but yeah, the camouflage game was pretty good. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you guys want to do some reader mail?
Riddle Man.
Yeah.
In space.
God.
What?
Oh, I bought a hilariously embarrassing game this week. So
Okay,
Please
do tell.
do
well, I
tell.
haven't really played it yet, so it's not. I'll talk about it the next time I'm on. But it's this is just a teaser trailer.
Yes, please.
For future embarrassing, gross story
Can you
of
tell
me
us
spending
what the
far
game
too
is?
much on a board game. So it's called Star Wars Armada.
Perfect.
So here's the thing about
Never
this.
heard of this.
So I hadn't either. So one of my great desires while playing like X-Wing, TIE Fighter, like games of that ilk, like Free Space, I always wanted to create levels for that. And I know some of them had level editors, but they were very clunky and I was too stupid at the time to figure them out. I think they were also just pretty clunky. But I've always wanted to have the ability to create like a level for one of those games. This game is essentially that, except you can just play it on your table, and it ships with like miniatures.
Oh, is this the
that
game
are-
with the where you're measuring tape ships around? Okay.
Yeah, it's all
I've heard
based.
nothing but good things about that.
There's no board. The board is just a space that you define. It's a huge space. It's like 3 foot by
Geometry.
6 feet,
Yeah.
and you the core kit comes with like one Star Destroyer and some TIE fighters, and then the Rebels have whatever their weird things are, and then it's all based on measurement and momentum. Like each ship has like a speed setting and momentum and all these things, and you play for like so many rounds and you score hits, and there are fighters that sort of have all these. It's kind of like a
sounds
simple
great.
concept.
Yeah.
It's the idea is like it's filling the niche in my mind where I'm like an admiral that has like the little like stick that you can push little pieces around on the board. Like that's what my kitchen table looks like right now.
Who are you
Except my
playing
girlfriend
this
was
with?
out of town when I bought this, and she came home to my
Who are
kitchen
you
table.
playing it with if you.
Well, I was playing it by myself this weekend, Chris. If you must know. However, that was to learn the rules, so that I can play with Janelle, my girlfriend, who actually wants to play this. I don't think she knows what she's getting into though, because if I lose,
man.
it's gonna get gross. So anyway, teaser for the
Yes.
next.
There are two things that I feel like we have to talk about quickly before we get to reader mail, and I know this episode is going long, but one, Chris, I hear that you are no longer playing Fallout Shelter,
Heard that too.
and
Yeah, that's true.
is the what happened to your
For a
base?
sad reason. So when I upgraded my version of iOS, my operating system on my phone, now every time I launch Fallout Shelter, basically I can do whatever, like no matter what I do, it makes absolutely no difference. I do, assign people to things like send out explorers, whatever. Doesn't matter. About 30 seconds later, just hard crash to the home screen, and that's it. And if I load it up again, none of not even the things I did in that half a minute are saved. It's just back to the same state it was before. So my base is locked in a
rebelled,
stasis.
I think.
So it died the shittiest death possible.
Yeah, my base is locked in just the shittiest Groundhog Day. And that's that. So, and I actually have you know what? Here's my final, what may well be my final Fallout Shelter story. Unless they fix this.
Which I kind of hope they don't. I hope that your base is perpetually stuck in a 30-second loop.
Thanks, Jake. So what was a bummer, and I'm pretty sure this is complete coincidence. I think it was the operating system update that did it, not the Fallout Shelter update. Although I could be wrong about that. But Bethesda released a big the biggest patch to the game yet a few days before this happened to me, which included this Mr. Handy floating robot thing that helps by collecting resources from you, which, by the way, makes the game so much easier because you don't have to tap the resources yourself anymore. Like, it's crazy how much smoother that makes your base run. Although this is the first element that breaks the you don't need to spend money to have all the things in the game principle. It's cost $4.99, I think, is it's somewhere in that neighborhood. And there's no way to, as far as I can tell, there's no way to acquire it just through the game.
So did you pay $5 and then have the game break 3 days later?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
Whoops.
I know. The other thing they added was just way more dangerous shit. Just crazy shit. These
I saw
death claw monsters that can bust into your base way faster than raiders can and just rip the shit out of your dwellers. And then mole rats, which are these gross little creatures who burrow out of the floor then
Monty
infest.
Oh, that's good. So there's other sort of invasion directions that are not just through the front door.
Exactly right. And so the game is actually considerably harder. And the death claws, apparently, as I learned from the little help text in the loading screen, they are more likely to attack the more you open your base up to send explorers out. So just and the more you broadcast radio stations, both of which I do absolutely constantly, because as discussed in a previous segment about Fallout Shelter, I got myself to a point where I just have a rotating cast of attracting people to the base, sending the men right back out again to their deaths. So my door is basically always open and my radio rooms are always broadcasting. So effectively every single time I would load up the game, at least for the sort of almost week before it died. I would load it up, and probably within about 10 seconds, there would be a death claw attack. It was just, it was all the not all the time. After one happens, you have peace for a little bit, but pretty much every time I launched the game,
it would be immediate.
That would happen. Yeah. It was crazy how frequently it happened, and so at one point I was so that's the scene is set. This is a more dangerous world now in Fallout Shelter. And one of the things about the game is that I generally, instead of playing for huge chunks of time at once, I would load it up a couple times a day, because most of the game for me at this point is this incredibly sort of finicky little process of shuffling around all my little dwellers to make sure they're all training themselves in all the optimal places. If every time anyone maxes out a stat, got to make sure they're training in a different room now, so they're maxing out all the correct stats. So the game is and that's most effective in little bursts spread apart, because they take hours to gain up a specific stat. So there's not really any point to continue playing after you've done your little bi-daily shuffle, at least not with my current goals. And the compounding factor there is that this game takes longer to load than any mobile game I've ever played. Maybe other mobile games take this long also, but I never play mobile games that are this complex just ever. So it always feels like it takes a really long time to get into the game just from the home screen. And so once I do, it's okay, I want to get all my shit done and then get out. And I don't want to, if anything interrupts it, if you click back to the home screen for any reason, there's about a 90% chance you're going to have to go through the entire load screen again. to get back into it. And so anyway, so at one point I was playing at home, and I think I'd gotten home from work, and I loaded up to play, and then Sarah came into the bedroom or whatever, and like we were brought something up, and it was something where I'm like, okay, I need to obviously like focus on this conversation, but I'm like, oh, we'll probably be done talking in like 30 seconds. This is probably a quick thing, so I'm not going to quit the game. So with my like left hand or whatever, I just kind of like every few seconds, I just kind of idly swiped at the screen without looking at it, just to like make sure that that the phone didn't go to sleep.
Right.
So I wouldn't have to like, because as soon as the phone goes to sleep, I will have to load the game back up and wait for like multiple minutes while it fucking loads back in. And then I realized at a certain point, oh fuck, we've been talking for like 15 minutes, and I've just been like keeping the game alive by just brushing the
bored
screen.
Security guard, like Homer Simpson, just asleep with the controls.
Yes.
It
was a fucking nightmare. When I realized like what I had done, and I looked back at my base, holy shit. There were like, it was a catastrophe. There were fucking mole rats everywhere. Everyone was dead. It was crazy. It was the actual apocalypse happened like in a post-apocalyptic setting. There was another apocalypse, and it was in my apocalypse shelter. And
oh, man.
like
is Nick Breckon okay? You didn't even think to check. You didn't even think to check.
I don't think he made it.
This is okay. It was not. I couldn't think of like individuals in this circumstance.
That's exactly what the overseer would say.
No.
We can't listen. We can't think of individuals.
Is my family okay? I couldn't tell you.
No, dude, you don't understand.
It doesn't matter.
You don't understand.
Doesn't matter.
This was a complete massacre. It was nuts. There was probably a single-digit number of people left alive. It was crazy.
You're God, Nick.
It was crazy.
I'm number one.
So the thing that
everyone made it.
I spent so long going through and like reviving people and giving them health and like just be fucking miserable. Rooms were scorched. There were fires. Like it was nuts. And a thing that happens in this game is that when corpses fester for a while, rats just like appear around them. So my base was just like infested. Just like, I mean, they don't do anything other than just be there, but it was just rats everywhere. It was, and then I would realize like even hours later, I would zoom in on a little part and realize there were just like 5 dead people, and I just hadn't even noticed these other like cache of just dead people. There were just corpses everywhere. It was like, have you ever had the experience of looking at something in a I don't know, maybe in a house or something, and you notice like a little discoloration.
Oh yeah.
And you look up close and you're like, oh, that's an insect.
It's like,
and then you look
bugs
closer and there's more, and you like the closer you look, the more you realize like I didn't notice the infinite insects because there were so many that they homogenized into just like solid, and your brain suddenly is like awash with just waves of like horror and low level panic.
Yes.
That was what this was like. I just kept seeing more corpses and rats and like just scorched. It was crazy. Like just everywhere I looked, there was just a fractal of death and decay and destruction.
Do you think that the crashes are actually just the people in your vault trying to kill themselves for good? Do you think they just want it to stop?
They're done.
I feel like
it's your vault inhabitants. They're trying every time to uninstall the app, but they can't.
Yeah, it's just the horror movie like SOS. They're just communicating in any way they can to just end this.
I mean, I would say
screaming Fallout citizen cracks your screen finally. You're like,
I'm not entirely surprised it all ended in disaster, given some of your practices ruling this particular.
I wouldn't go that. I wouldn't say that.
The lesson Chris should actually learn is don't pay more attention to Sarah than you do to your shelter. What happened? Look at this.
Oh no!
You have to be
Maybe the
selfless.
app
The
was
life
actually
of an overseer
jealous.
is, it's not for everyone.
It's tough. It's a lonely.
There's no room for love.
existence.
Yeah.
Dr. Jones.
No room for love, Dr.
He says
Jones?
no time for love.
Yeah.
Well,
The way you said it. Just
when he was
reminded me.
playing Fallout Shelter, he changed it.
That's true.
The other thing I wanted to make you guys talk about before you talk about reader mail.
Oh, sure.
Because I want to make you talk about it.
Uh-huh.
Is
Oh yeah.
there was this guy once
Jesus Christ.
that Nick was standing near in airport security.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And
I
almost stole his
talk about
shoes.
this.
And I'm talking, of course, about Dr. Ian Malcolm.
Yep.
Yeah, Nick. On what was it?
Friday
Night. Nick and I went to watch Jeff Goldblum and the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra.
Yes.
Which is Jeff Goldblum and a 4-piece jazz combo.
Yeah.
Playing at a nightclub, a hotel nightclub in downtown San Francisco. That was a fascinating experience.
Yeah.
That was a really
Please
interesting.
do tell. Please do
I
tell.
don't know where to start.
It's exuberant.
Jeff
Yeah.
Goldblum played. So Jeff Goldblum has a jazz band that he plays piano, and he leads a jazz band that plays a weekly show in Los Angeles. And he came up to San Francisco for a 2-night engagement where he basically he just came up himself and just hooked up with 3 local jazz players on guitar, bass, standing bass, and drums, and then a local singer for two of the songs. And so about 40% of the evening was jazz music. And,
That's generous. That's very generous.
and the other 60% was just maximum Goldblum.
Yeah.
Alone
What?
on stage with
It's very
not alone on
clear-
stage, standing on stage with other musicians, just kind of sitting there while he just Goldblum the fuck out for 2 hours.
Excellent.
It's very clear that he knows that's why people are there.
Yes.
It's very clear that the band knows why that's why people are
Yes.
there. It's very clear that the band knows what this phenomenon is.
Yeah.
Like, the band is in on the entire...
Well, the funny thing is they weren't even his
fucking-
band. They were just some guys.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, but they're still like, oh, Jeff Goldblum wants us to
knew.
play for 2 nights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's do
No,
this.
it was... They
I'll
were
play my
like-
bass for you, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even... It is difficult to know what to say about it. I mean,
and here's a thing I will say with respect to him knowing why everyone was there and the band knowing why everyone was there. Given that, he knows what he's doing.
This
as
is a
a
good
jazz
show.
musician, the thing about jazz is there are a lot of actors who pursue singing careers or are in rock bands and stuff,
Right.
and it's okay, even if they do a good job, it's that's fine. A lot of people can do that. I'm a rock musician. I am not precious about it. It is really not that hard to learn how to strum a guitar and sing some words well enough to not embarrass yourself on stage, especially surrounded by other decent musicians. That is not true of leading a jazz band on piano. I mean, he is obviously not a world-class jazz pianist, but he is absolutely knows what he's doing. Knows how to integrate with people he hasn't played with before and really hold his own in a really legit way that is, I think, extremely impressive for someone whose job that isn't. That was really cool to see, which makes it all the more fascinating that most of what he did was just what he does.
Please describe Goldbluming out
I mean,
a little bit.
a lot of the show
consciousness
was him just
Okay.
wandering through the crowd, kind of touching people.
Yeah.
Occasionally he would just sort of rifle off, very stream of consciousness, like he would look at somebody and say, what's your name? And they would just say, I don't know, Frank. And he would just say, oh, Frank, I once worked with a Frank. Frank Shlomo
this is
from
what he-
1982.
This is what
this is the movie name. What's the movie? Tell me what the movie title is that I was in with him. Somebody, anybody? And then
True or false? I was in a movie with
Yeah.
Frank Robinson, and the answer is true, of course. And then
yeah.
the fucking spoiler, it's always true.
It was false
always
once.
true.
Oh, that's true. It was false.
It was
once.
false once.
Yeah.
He's
True,
going to throw one in
18
there.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loves true or false.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It really was
it
like
was a fascinating
an
show.
evening with the most strange uncle.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
Sounds really good.
Yeah, it
It
sounds
was
awesome.
really
Oh,
good.
if you have
I would
the
do this
opportunity.
again in a moment.
if you have the opportunity.
We also probably spent more. Probably spent more time at our table
Yeah.
than any other table except for one.
What
Did he
drew him
sense-
to you?
Well, so,
Two different things, at least.
yeah.
One, all of your drinks were in cold blooms.
no,
There you go.
I didn't bring a cold bloom.
Oh my God.
He would have. I think I didn't ahead of time. The reason I didn't bring a cold bloom, which was our Jeff Goldblum
faced
themed beer
koozie.
koozie. I didn't bring one actually just because I forgot, not because I was worried about it.
Yeah.
But I was like ahead of time wondering, like, should I bring one of these? Like, would he appreciate this or not? After that,
retrospect,
he fucking would have
loved it.
exploded with pleasure.
Yeah. Like he would have reared up. I mean, like he would have.
So one of the reasons he spent time at our table is because he did this thing that I guess his manager prepared for him, which was throughout the show he had these quizzes that like one of the people just in his like celebrity group of people who do help him with things just sort of took the initiative, and he didn't know this was happening, I guess, just prepared him these quizzes on just printed sheets of paper that were San Francisco related. So he would say, here's a clue as to this San Francisco themed movie, and then people in the audience would have to shout it out or whatever. And one of them was here's a piece of San Francisco themed literature. Who knows what it is? And he started giving a plot summary, and like half a sentence in, I knew that it was The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, which we actually read on the Idle Book Club, which was our literary podcast that we ran for about a year. And that was correct. And so he came over to our table and, talked to us about it for a while. And then that led to
You're just talking about Thomas Pynchon with Jeff Goldblum?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Thomas Pynchon and like the Inherent Vice movie. And, like, he and I shared that P.T. Anderson is among our favorite directors, and like he just like spun off on his
fucking Christ.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then the other time he was hanging out at our table was numerous times throughout the evening. He went off on his like personal credo, which is that what was it, Nick? Like, you must not contest nature, you must not deny nature, you must respect nature.
So he was basically trying to tell you life finds a way.
Yeah, exactly. He has this like thing, there's like 4 things that he repeats about nature. And part of it is like, he was talking about being on talk shows and how they do makeup and how he doesn't like getting the makeup on talk shows because he doesn't think you should try and hide the nature of your face or or anything, right? Like, he doesn't think people should have weapons. He doesn't think like anything you should be against nature or whatever. I mean, it's like his version of this is very
this is Goldblum,
what it is, but like, yes. But one of them was like, how much he doesn't like he doesn't like to get the makeup on television, and he came over to our table and like was sort of pawing at Janelle and Sarah, being like, see, you can see very little makeup, very beautiful, very little makeup, as he's like stroking their hair and stuff.
Oh my God.
So that was the other reason that he was...
That's a less encouraging Goldblum appearance.
He's very handsy with the women he was very just generally handsy. And not just actually with women, with men as well, for that matter. But
he's a hands-on kind of dude. Okay.
He's just a very touchy man.
guy.
He just has that, like, constantly walking everywhere, reaching out.
Tiny imperfections in the skin.
Yes, exactly. It was really an evening.
That is incredible.
He signed so he gave me the sheet of paper with the Crying of Lot 49 quiz and signed it, and his signature is like incomprehensible. It's nothing. It's like a quiz.
He just draws a line.
It is so many lines, but none of them have any connection to each other. It was strange.
That seems
I'm gonna
perfect,
frame this fucking piece of paper because it's hilarious.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that I asked about that because now you guys told me some weird shit.
Yeah.
I probably by asking you about those 2 things ate a ton of time, but do you want to still do reader mail or do you want to hold it?
Sure.
I mean, that felt like a reader mail.
That was a reader mail from Jeff Goldblum.
Chris and Nick in their own reader mail a little bit.
Yeah.
It was good.
All right. Oh, here's a well, actually, here, let's see.
I dare you to do a Robot News free reader mail, Chris.
I don't think we have time. There is so much robot news this week, and
robots have taken over the Idle Thumbs inbox the way they will eventually take over mankind.
Yes, exactly. Yes. There's actually a really important reader mail we have to do about Samantha West, the
that's true,
robot telemarketer from last week. There's really good stuff about that, but it needs time to do it justice, so I'm going to have to push that off till next week.
Fair. Fair.
The truth behind Samantha West is Both dumb and amazing.
Yeah, it is both like it is seems like a letdown, but it is so much. It actually is so much better than anything. Yeah, next week. All right.
Teaser. Yeah.
So, Nicholas Horowitz writes, "Hey Thumbs, your conversation about Chris misunderstanding the context of George H.W. Bush's read my lips moment reminded me of my own strange early 90s political misunderstanding. I distinctly remember sometime around 1992 that I came across something described as gory, and I asked my mom what it meant. She told me, it's like something that's scary because it's covered in blood and guts. Flash forward a few months, and I hear my parents talk about how they want Clinton and Gore for president. It never occurred to me that Gore could be someone's last name. I had no context for who Al Gore was. I had a legitimate mental image that Bill Clinton's running mate was a blood and guts covered zombie man, and I could not imagine why my parents would think such a person would be good to vote for. As it turns out, Al Gore was not a monster, but even after I discovered this, I could not separate his last name from that mental image. Thanks for the hours of entertainment. Keep casting those pods, Nick."
That's really good.
Mm-hmm. Michael Reneker writes about Hacknet, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. I brought up some of the sort of weird, unsavory chat logs in it, and he writes, "The majority of the IRC chat logs in Hacknet are actually quotes of the top 100 or so from bash.org, which is basically a collection of funny, or maybe, quote, funny, snippets from IRC. As someone who used to read bash.org over a decade ago and have not thought of it in years, it felt like a nostalgic throwback to me." Michael Reneker. But that was a good thing to point out. Daniel Williams writes, "Hey, Dan Williams from Boston here. I was listening to the podcast, and the discussion of parents naming their kids Turok reminded me of another, quote, original name. The Phil Collins song Sussudio is about some woman he wants to bang or whatever. I don't know. But I remember reading years ago that the reason he made up that name is so it would represent any female. What a creep. So I went to look it up on one of those people search sites, and sure enough, there are women named Sussudio who were only born after that song was written. Aww. So there's that. Thanks, and keep up the great casting."
Go Red Sox.
People.
And Olivia B. writes, "Hi, Thumbs. I've been listening to your podcast for the last 20 to 30 episodes. I've had bad auditory processing problems since I was a kid, meaning I find recognizing voices pretty difficult. This has put me off podcasts in general for a long time since I haven't been able to put voices to names, and I often drift off halfway through. However, my boyfriend loves podcasts, and yours in particular, and kept playing Idle Thumbs when I was around. I really liked what I heard, so I gave it a shot. Obviously, it was easier for me to remember who Danielle was, and it was nice when Spaff joined the cast because of his accent. But keeping track of Chris, Sean, Jake, and Nick is very difficult. I'd often listen intently at the beginning when you'd introduce yourselves, determined to figure it out, but I'd forget again after 15 minutes. Last episode, it all finally clicked. Maybe because Sean had been gone for a while, but I suddenly noticed the difference between Chris's and Sean's voices, and then going back to earlier episodes, Nick became much more distinctive too. Proof that perseverance pays off.
Only I am indistinct.
Well,
I'm Jake Rodkin, by the way.
There's a payoff coming up.
Oh.
I'm really glad I kept up with the podcast, even though the episodes, which to my ears mainly consisted of one man having an intense 2 or 3 way debate with himself over city skylines. You've informed me about a lot of great games I never would have heard of and have provided hours of entertainment. I realize this email is kind of insulting and boring, but I wanted to share my breakthrough with you. Thanks, Olivia. P.S. Fuck, I just realized Jake was in the last episode and I didn't even notice. I will keep you updated when I figure out who the hell he is. And then one day later, hi again, listening to this week's podcast. I got Jake. Sorry for missing you for the first time.
Aww. Admittedly, last week I should be reasonably easy to discern because I'm the person who sounds like he's screaming from another room. Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say that. I was like, oh, this is
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Here's the last email. This I sent in to us because I wanted to remember to not forget about it. I don't think we ever talked about this, but this was a thing that happened months ago.
Is this all the email you wrote in?
I wrote an email just to remind
I thought
myself.
you were like, "Dear Chris, I don't think we talked about this."
No, I just saw a thing on the internet and it cracked me up, and I emailed it to questions. I just emailed a link to questions@idlethumbs.net, and now I am remembering to talk about it. I'm pretty sure we never talked about this. Someone can remind me if I'm wrong about this, but I don't think we did. You guys remember the whole Sony hack with all the emails that came out?
Yeah.
There was an incredible email that we never mentioned that is video game related, written by Dick Sano, Senior Vice President of Sony Pictures Releasing International. He writes, Sonic - the Hedge Dog.
No!
The space hedge space dog. Sonic the Hedge Dog. Dear all, Hannah Miguela just called to give me an early heads up that a very popular video game for years from Sega Game Maker named Sonic the Hedge Dog will be made into a live-action film. Script is not completed, but it would be financed 50-50 by SPE and Sega. blah, blah, blah. According to Hannah, the release date in the U.S. will hopefully be in 2016. I hope this would be another franchise just like Resident Evil for our Japanese market. Sincerely, Dick. And then there's all these other emails from executives being like, can you please forward me information about this Sonic Dash the Hedgehog character? I would like to get up to speed on this. That's really good.
I hope that, I mean, as much as I kind of hope that this person is so out of control that they don't know what Sonic the Hedgehog is, it seems like that's got to just be a really bad autocorrect that they somehow didn't catch twice because they wrote that email while driving.
The other good thing about
but then hopefully everyone else had no idea what was going on.
There are other emails that are related. Apparently, there's a different movie that Sony optioned about, like, that I guess is a dramatization of the 90s, the 1990s competition between Sony and Nintendo.
Oh.
Like a sort of like, you know, probably lightly fictional or maybe heavily fictionalized, like
console wars
story.
thing.
Yes, exactly. And then there's other like emails from worried executives who are going back and forth and like worrying that like the Hedgehog executives are going to like stomp on the Nintendo versus Sony executives because there's a beat in the Sony versus Nintendo movie.
Sony?
Oh,
Okay, I thought you said Sega versus
Oh, sorry,
Nintendo.
it is Sega versus Nintendo. I don't know why I said Sony. Sega versus there's like the creation of Sonic the Hedgehog is like a moment in that movie. So like I'm very concerned that this other movie is going to compete with this movie, and it's just like fucking executive dick measuring in a really good stupid way.
That Hedgehog.
Yeah, there were fears that Console Wars and a Hedgehog would compete with each other and cannibalize the...
Console Wars and Hedgehog is also a leading console IP. It's like,
Oh my god.
It's a rare platformer.
yep.
There you go. Lots of googly eyes.
So I really
good.
enjoyed reading through all these stupid emails.
Oh, it's really good. This has been an amazing podcast. Truly a good one.
True or false? It's false.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this episode of Idle Thumbs was brought to you by Cody, KODIE.me, Cody.me. Cody is apparently a tiny bearded man who would like to help you with 2D and 3D animation, character modeling, character rigging, art, design, and illustration. You can go to Cody.me, that's KODIE.me, and look at his portfolio. He works on games, cartoons, movies, paintings, all kinds of things. He is an all-purpose illustrator and animator. And if you go to Cody.me, you can see all the stuff he has. And use the code. He says you can use the code video games to discuss computer games with Cody.me. So go ahead and do that.
Nice. Yep. What's that URL one more time? Sorry.
It is Cody.me. That's KODIE.me.
Sweet.
Nice.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider rating us on iTunes. It is very helpful. It is one of the ways that people find out about the show. If you think someone might like it who you know, tell them. Let them know that we exist. You can find us at idlethumbspodcast.com. We're part of the Idle Thumbs Network, which includes a number of other shows, including our newest show, Esports Today, which is a great, very listenable esports podcast hosted by Rob Zachney and Andrew Gruen, talking about everything that's happening in pro and competitive gaming over the last week. You can find that at esports.today.
Awesome.
And all of our podcasts at idlethumbs.net.
Truly.
You can also find it at idlethumbs.computer if you have taste.
True. And I believe idlethumbs.cool.
Oh, yeah.
Anything you could ever want.
Yep.
What you want when you need it. Idlethumbs.cool.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Nick.
Bye, Nick.
Bye, Nick.